Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Steve Pappas. He's the Senior Vice President and Head of North American Operations and Global Chief Marketing Officer at Panviva. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Panviva is actually probably arguably the most important thing that companies need to focus on. They don't always focus on. But maybe before we get into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. So I grew up in Massachusetts.
Okay, very cool.
Basically, it started off in Mass. I've lived in Florida, lived in California, and now back in beautiful New Hampshire, where we have 4 seasons.
Very cool, very cool. So what did you take in university and why?
So in university, it was kind of interesting. I had always had an interest in computers growing up. And I was the kind of kid that loved to take everything apart, everything electronic.
Nice.
I took it apart, put it back together, figured out how things work, and it drove my parents crazy. But what I found was I like to understand how things work.
Sure.
And what they probably didn't get at the time was I was going to be one of those kids that just had a thirst for knowledge. I still do to this day, 50 some odd years later.
That's awesome.
And I'm the guy that's always learning. I'm taking courses all the time. I'm trying to figure out new areas to become expert in, because honestly, I think if I'm not learning, I'm not happy.
No, I totally get that. I feel like I'm the same way. I'm 36, but I think a lot of people seem to give up learning maybe in their early 30s or 40s, I would guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they do, because some of them equate it with the drudgery of test taking and the problems that they may have encountered, rather than the satisfaction of the learning itself.
Sure.
And I'm part of a family that had many teachers in it.
Okay.
So I don't think I really had much of a choice but to be a lifelong learner.
Sure.
Because I understood that learning and continuously evolving not only what I do allows me to bring more value to whatever job I had at the time.
Sure.
Rather than saying, well, gee, I'm at the edge of my knowledge here. I will go out and find a way to understand and almost become expert in that. Not that I want to profess my expertise, but I want to be able to provide more value. And if it's not just to the company, it's to the customers that we ultimately serve at the end of the day.
No, totally makes sense. So walk me through your journey up until what you're doing today. I know you've been at the company for almost 11 years now, or maybe a little bit longer than that, but walk me through your journey up until Panviva.
Sure. So, let's go back in time just a little bit.
Sure.
So I've had 6 startups.
Wow.
And all successful. And I think some of them I was just crazy to do. And I think for startups, you have to have the crazy gene sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you go into the unknown and figure it out sometimes on the fly.
Sure.
But my first business was, and you'll probably laugh, I had my eye on a shiny new 1982 black Trans Am.
Okay,
with
fair enough.
The T-top roofs.
Sure.
And it was $13,600 at the time, brand new. And my family didn't have anything near that, nor was anybody going to give it to me. So I had to figure out how to get it.
Okay.
So I looked around, and this was in the winter time, and I said, gee, I really would like that to go into my senior year of high school, and my senior year of college. And I said, okay, this is going to be great. So what I did was I rented an ice cream truck for the spring, summer, and fall.
Okay.
And I busted my rear end. I probably drove somewhere between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. I would end at the softball and baseball fields. And I did that every single day for all 3 seasons that it was nice enough out and people wanted the ice cream truck guy, right?
Wow.
And at the end of that, I remember the end of September, I was counting the money I had saved up, and I was just shy of the number. And then I had one long, beautiful weekend early in October, and I was able to push it over the edge.
That's
and
amazing.
I went down to the Pontiac dealership, which doesn't even exist anymore, and I plunked down the money in a treasurer's check, and I said, "That's the one I want."
That's amazing.
And that got me the bug, right? And
Sure.
then I finished university. I went to work for a government contractor. I had a lot of great offers because I worked on an Air Force base for 4 years during the university. So I got a great amount of computer background. I was writing Fortran and COBOL programs, which now people don't even know what those are going through coding school today.
Sure.
But I was doing building accounting programs for the Air Force. So when it was time to be recruited, I was getting some really good offers and ended up going to work for a government contractor. Realized that was a really strange kind of an environment that you have to either really like or not.
Sure.
But all of a sudden I was running the office automation for the whole federal systems group, about 12,000 people for this company.
Wow.
And I was dealing and interacting with salespeople that were selling this new thing called an IBM PC, which it was revolutionary.
Sure.
And I'm talking to them and I'm saying, gee, how's business? Oh, we're killing it. We're doing really. I said, well, I want to do that. So I left and I went to work for one of the largest software distributors at the time. There were the top 3. I worked for the 3rd largest, and I got the sales bug at that point too, because not only did I have the ice cream truck, but then I got that sales bug. And as you can tell, I love talking to people anyway, and it just clicked. It really clicked. So technology was in my blood, but rather than creating the technology, I was making sure that I provided solutions to people. And I was a very consultative seller. And that was great. But there was still something a little missing. I wanted to run my own show. And I always thought that because we had some people in our family that were entrepreneurs, and I got great advice from them, even from my father, all the way to an uncle that had 40 some odd food trucks all around the New England area. I said, I really think this would be good. So I started embarking on my string of startups that were mostly in the travel business, also travel technology. And then my last one was a charter airline. I actually started my own charter airline.
Wow.
And yes, that was where the crazy gene kicked in, because nobody in their right mind starts an airline.
Interesting.
And does all the paperwork themselves because they didn't know better.
Sure. So how did that go? Did you exit? Did you shut it down? Walk us through that.
So I ran it for 2 years, because the reason why I started it was I realized that there wasn't enough inventory of seats in the holiday times from Boston to the Caribbean.
Okay.
So whether that was Puerto Rico, the Dominican, et cetera. So I put planes on going back and forth and allowing family to visit family for reasonable costs and not be gouged by what the airlines were charging the top dollar, because it was holiday time. And
Interesting.
we were full, and I did that for 2 straight years. On the 3rd year, the airlines approached me and said, hey, are you going to lease our planes again? And I looked and I said, you know what? I'm hearing rumblings that my success is causing other people to say they can do it. And now I could smell the competition was coming in the area. So I basically backed off and said, you know what? I'm not going to be leasing this year.
Interesting.
That made a lot of people unhappy. But the reality is there were others that tried to jump in. They didn't do it the same way that we did. And they ended up not continuing.
Interesting.
And the reason why I think we were successful is because I've always lived by a mantra of the customer is at the center of the universe.
Okay.
And that was instilled in me by my dad, my mom, and my uncle, that you always over service your customer and you treat them like the most important person.
Sure.
And we used to have hosts on every one of our flights. At the time, people didn't have tablets and stuff, so we had the coloring books and the crayons and the games for adults like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune type games, and we made it an experience.
Interesting.
And people absolutely loved that approach. And I decided, no, that wasn't going to be it. But all of my other investments, I sold all of the rest of them for profits along the way, and then decided to go back and use the knowledge that I learned in my 6 startups, which also included creating call centers to back up some of these, had a TV show. But, I said, you know what? I've learned a lot of survival techniques that would be valuable to companies that are in the growth stage, or even companies that are looking for turnaround experts. And that's pretty much what I've done ever since that point. I've been a turnaround expert and a growth guy, and always keep the mantra of the customers at the center of the universe, and it's really served me well.
Very cool. So how did you get to Panviva, and what exactly do you guys do?
So I was recruited into Panviva by the board at the time. So we're originally headquartered in Australia, Melbourne, Australia.
Very cool.
And they were looking to expand into the North American market.
Sure.
So I was part of the initial team that was hired. So they did a search for who could run this operation. And they came to me and I said, okay, well, what's the product? And they said, wow, it's in the knowledge management space. And I said, no, that's okay. Knowledge management, been there, done that. Got the T-shirt. That's been perfected. And they said, no. You got to look at the way we approach the problem.
Okay.
So I gave them another shot. We met again. I got a demo. I talked to customers. Then I realized that every company in the knowledge space was approaching a problem in a different way than Panviva. Panviva was approaching it in really showing companies how to rethink their tribal knowledge, as well as the policies and procedures that they run their organization on. For every employee to be able to get to every answer they need in 3 clicks or less, that was almost nirvana to my ears. I couldn't even believe it. And then when I dug in, I realized this is real. This is, they looked at a problem and they approached the problem differently. So they created a solution to solve that information chaos that happens in every company that's got 50 or more employees. The silos, multiple silos, that is usually where a lot of companies go wrong in the information area. They create a single source of truth, and they approach it from, there's a payload. Whenever an employee is doing something, whether it's a task, an interaction, or a transaction, they need multiple things, right? They need the answers at their fingertips so they can be confident, so they can provide the absolute best service they can to the customer at the time, whether it's in front of them, on the phone, etc. But they also need to know how to navigate a myriad of applications that we all have to deal with today, whether it's a CRM system or other quotation, proposal, whatever the systems are. So they need to have navigational skills. And then they also need soft skills given to them. What do I say? What do I do? What do I avoid saying? What is not sanctioned at this point? And there's a veil over all of that of how do I remain compliant so that I'm keeping the interests of the company at heart and making sure that my customer feels like they're the most important thing to us. And
Sure.
the customer experience really is what we drive. And that was, I got hooked at that point, and I said, where do we sign and how do we get started? And let's build an incredible future.
Very cool. So how do you guys work with an organization, and do you guys work in certain verticals, or are you guys vertical agnostic, or how does that work?
It's a real good question. Now, if you look at us on a global basis, we are vertical agnostic. Here in the U.S., as you can imagine, the way I run the organization here is,
Sure.
I believe you focus. So
Okay.
especially when I'm growing a business, you've got to focus. So we started off in the healthcare business. And I directed the business to start with healthcare payers,
Okay.
insurance companies,
Sure.
like the Blue Crosses
Right.
and other insurance companies. And then I said, once we get to that proverbial tipping point, then we move a degree left or a degree right. So that brought us into hospital systems,
Smart.
health
Okay.
systems, urgent care, chains of imaging centers, then chains of urgent care. But we stayed true to the focus, and that allows you to grow a business. Because, let's look at the U.S. It is such a massive market to
Sure.
build to begin with. If you're looking at U.S. and Canada, you've
Sure.
got other issues, data sovereignty issues and privacy issues you've got to keep in mind. So once you develop expertise, you really should stick close to that till you expand that beyond that tipping point, then expand to the next one. So then we started moving. After a few years, we got to maybe 25% of the U.S. market in
Wow.
that. Then we moved more to financial services,
Gotcha.
everything from credit unions on up to the largest banks, the largest lending companies, and then you move to insurance, you move to utilities, et cetera. So it really is a phased approach when you're looking at the U.S. market, because in some of my other positions, I would take American software global. So
Sure.
my experience is 54 different countries,
Wow.
building distribution, building offices, distributors, et cetera, and setting those types of things up. But when you're building the U.S. as a main market, you really have to focus. Otherwise, you can run yourself into the ground, and before you know it, you're looking for more capital every time you turn around.
No, fair enough. So how do you actually implement your guys' approach into an organization and actually get buy-in from leadership, the employees, and kind of everybody in between?
A real good question. So the first part is we look for companies that are more progressive, that
Okay.
understand that information is the key to success, right? How you serve information to your employees, to your customers, to any channel you think of is really the key to success. It's the how you do it, right? So if you're thinking about any of the factors, if it starts with the word how, it's generally about a policy, a procedure, an instruction set, things of that nature. In many cases, it's companies that want to really cherish the asset of tribal knowledge. How
Sure.
did we become a world-class organization? How we do the things we do is generally what needs to be captured and created as an asset that needs to be fed properly, right? So we look for
Sure.
those types of companies, and there are a lot of them around. Some of them give lip service to it, but for the most part, you've got people inside at the top that say that's real important. And capturing the knowledge before it walks out the door, capturing the knowledge before the baby boomers retire, capturing that knowledge so that you don't have to reinvent yourself too many times along the way is very important, right? Because it walks out much faster than you could imagine these days. So we do that. We look to those. And then from the minute we talk to them, we ask them specifically about the way they operate. Okay. So we go in and we look at all of their, all of the way they do things. I mean, we will sit in a contact center if that's the area of the business, and we'll sit in there for a few days or a week and listen to the problem sets first. Listen to how do they handle things today. And most of the time, it's kind of all over the place. But I'll give you a key. If we walk in and we could see sticky notes around a monitor or on the walls, we know they have a process issue, right?
Interesting.
Because you don't need sticky notes if you've got all your policies, procedures in a system that you access quickly. We look to see if there are binders. We look to see if there are lots of things tacked up on the cubicle walls or on the walls, right? So there are telltale signs quickly that allow us to ascertain that they have a fundamental need to optimize their procedures. And it's really not about the storage of information. So that's where a lot of companies go wrong. It has nothing to do with how you store information. So we all, every company has SharePoint, they've got shared drives, they've got many different ways of storing information, Dropbox, Box.net, etc. The problem is not about how you store information. It's how someone can access it at the moment they need it. So it's really about architecture, not about storage.
Interesting.
And that's the piece that sometimes is missed with a lot of folks. And that's what we instill in them. We basically have it's kind of a rethinking their information. And we have a huge ecosystem of partners all around the world that are certified in our methods, our methodology.
Okay.
And they go in and they do what we call a ready, set, go, which really uncovers all of the issues to optimize. It does a situation analysis, a gap analysis, and it really figures out, and this is done in 3 days. This is not
quick,
something that you're going to look at over the course of a year. This is done in 3 days, and then a content inventory of what have you got written, where is it, in what format. Oh, maybe it's in people's heads, so let's get it out of the heads of the people through an interviewing process. And all of our partners know how to manage that process very quickly. It's like a 1 week kind of an engagement. And then the company implements our system, and they start taking that content and putting it right into our system. And our system even helps you put it in. So it's not a difficult process. We've had customers that are up and running with all new procedures in 30, 40 days.
Wow, so very quick.
It's a real quick process. Now, the caveat is, are processes ever done, right? They're changing every night, regulations, things like that. And even the maintenance and the ongoing changes are a breeze. I mean, generally, most of our clients say it's about a quarter of a full-time employee or a half of a full-time employee to maintain it at the highest levels. So you might have a trainer or a subject matter expert that splits their time between, putting in all the changes that are happening just because the business changes, keeping them, up at the top level, and maybe then they train half the time, et cetera. So it's a perfect marriage of that. But the key, and most of our customers will tell you, the key is the system and the process helped us rethink our information, not for today, but for the future, so that we can grow and we can weather any storm that hits us, and we captured all that tribal knowledge, and we can optimize it for the future.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I think that's great. So you mentioned something that I want to dive a little bit deeper into. So you guys built software that they put their stuff in, or how does that work?
It's exactly it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just to backtrack a little bit. So the company was really developed based on a consultancy and a methodology model.
Okay.
Right? So originally, Panviva was a consulting company that consulted on how do you reformat your information. And at the time, it was in paper in the 90s. Right?
Sure.
And we would go into very large SAP implementations, Siebel, all of those types of massive implementations, help them rethink their information that employees need so they can access it quickly, but rethink it with a methodology. So I don't know if you're familiar with the term information mapping, but at the time, information mapping was a company that was developed in Belgium and in Massachusetts. The same time, Panviva was doing a very similar thing in developing an information mapping methodology. How do employees around the world and different generations prefer to get information so that they can turn it into action in the shortest amount of time with the highest level of comprehension and success, ultimately making each transaction or interaction successful, right? And that was the methodology. But then, of course, customers started saying, well, we need it right on the computer. We need it on our screen.
Yeah.
So that's when our founders went into the proverbial back room, worked with some engineers, and said, we're gonna morph into a technology company, a software company.
Smart.
And as it happened, some of the first customers in Australia were just very demanding customers because they were using us either in their contact center or in critical areas of healthcare and things like that. Right. So they'd be ringing up customer support, say, hey, how about this enhancement request? How about this? So what happened is the technology progressed very quickly from when it originally came out in 2001 to when we entered the U.S. market in 2007, 2008.
Sure. Interesting. So you talk about this omni-channel knowledge cloud, and you mentioned omni-channel. What does that mean to you guys, and how do you guys implement that? Because that is such a important part of this whole discussion, but I think a lot of people don't think of it like that. So do you want to talk about why that's important and how you guys use that?
Yeah, absolutely. And omni-channel is not quite a pervasive term yet. Most people are thinking in terms of, we need to make sure we are where our customers want us to be, right? Sure. That we can communicate with our customers on every device with every method from our web. Maybe they create web portals, that's a channel. Sure. Maybe the customer self-service, that's a channel. Maybe it's our phone system. When they dial in and they punch 1 for this, 2 for that, and 3 for more information, that's a channel, right? The mobile app is another channel. If they can do customer service through a Twitter stream, that's another channel. Gotcha. Or maybe now they're even talking into the air in their living room and saying, Alexa, can you check on my claim from my car accident? Sure. Right? Again, another channel. Well, that has morphed. Those are what we're calling multi-channel. That you needed to keep developing the way you can communicate, or the way customers can communicate or work with you as multi-channel. But the reality is that now you almost have to be in all of them, right? So the bar has been set to be omni-channel, meaning you're able to offer all these methods for your customer to use where they feel comfortable, and they can switch channels. They may start out on one channel and then move to another channel. Like maybe at 2 a.m, they just can't sleep because their refrigerator's not working and they're typing, and all of a sudden they realize they're typing with a chat bot that's not a human,
Sure.
but they come to a critical point and the chatbot says, I think I need to transfer you to a live agent to schedule this for you. We'll have a technician come out to you. And so meaning they switched channels seamlessly. So
Sure.
the omni-channel really is going to become the standard of the future for all businesses. They have to go that way. The customers are demanding it. And that's just going to be a fact that you have to really factor into your business planning, right?
Sure.
Now, the important part of omni-channel is one channel cannot differ from the other channel. Meaning if you call the contact center and you get one answer, but you're on with a chatbot later that night and you get a different answer,
right.
and you went onto their website and you get a third answer, guess what happens to your brand?
Yeah.
People
fair.
just don't trust. They start to say, well, wait a minute, why am I getting different answers? That has been the fundamental flaw in most companies' execution of omni-channel,
Sure.
is that they've created separate silos of information that don't talk to each other, so they can't synchronize and update properly.
Sure.
Our approach with our new product coming out next month, which is called the Digital Orchestrator, is we looked at that problem and we said, that's the problem we have to solve.
Sure.
So we solved it with a single source of truth,
Okay.
a one repository that is powerful enough to be able to serve all of your channels and create the answers that are fit for each channel. Meaning, if you call the contact center and you said, hey, how's the weather? They'll say, bring an umbrella. But if you asked Alexa, what's the weather? She would say, there's a 70% chance of rain tonight, Kevin. It would be a good idea to bring your umbrella.
Got you.
So each channel has a little different version, similar information,
Right.
but a little different version based on what's expected from that channel.
Smart.
And you have to understand those nuances. We call it micro content that has to be fit for channel. So in our system, we also have what's called a content curator, because
Okay.
we're building content, you're building procedural information that your employees are going to use, but then repurpose that and be able to tag or slightly change each snippet for each channel.
Sure.
Honestly, it just takes a few minutes to do. But the difference in how your customer views it is massive, because now all the answers across the omni-channel are being served from the same root base information, with it being tailored properly to the channel. And then, of course, you can personalize it even further. And that's the problem we needed to set out to solve, is that you may be using Panviva to solve your human capital initiatives internally. Make sure your employees have every information in 3 clicks or less. And then you serve it up through either our use of APIs, which allows you to connect us to any app you've got or any technology, or you need something that is fit for the omni-channel, and that's where our digital orchestrator with curation of content fit for each channel comes into play. And, quite frankly, it's probably going to be the biggest launch of a new product that we've ever had in the history of the company.
Very cool.
Because it solves a massive problem.
No, well, it solves a massive problem for the consumer, and correct me if I'm wrong here, or sorry, your clients, well, and their customers, but correct me if I'm wrong here.
Right.
Your biggest value prop to your clients is, sure, they might have to keep their content updated as they change, but they don't have to build their own software to make sure they're running on all the latest platforms and doing all the latest integrations with different hardware, software, and other devices that are coming out. because you guys just handle that, and they might need to go in and tweak content for a new service or product or whatever they decide to add. But if they had to handle that, you basically need an army of developers and designers to make that happen. And most companies can't do that, don't want to do that, or for a number of other reasons aren't in the business of doing that, or all of the above. Is that fair to say? Is that kind of a very simplified version of what you guys do?
You're spot on.
Okay,
you're
awesome.
really spot on because that scenario there really lends itself to, if this is not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, we're now in our 12th generation of our product.
Wow.
Right? So if a company says, well, we're going to go build that in some other tool, whether it's SharePoint or some other tool, we're going to go build that same thing that you've perfected over the years with all of the expertise that has gone into it. And usually I say, I've been in and out of a lot of universities, and the ability to code is there, but not how employees or customers require the knowledge to be served to them. It's really about the delivery, to make sure that the delivery is right. That's the key to the success at the end of the day. The content has to be in there, and our system helps you put it in, helps you stay coloring within the lines, right? And it supports you all along the way. But it's really a difficult thing to have that army of developers to do that. I mean, you'd end up spending millions, probably need a massive army to do it. And at the end, you're going to have a version 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how long is a business willing to wait to be able to use that? And maybe version 1 is not strong enough. Maybe you got to wait for version 2 or version 3, whereas our system is cloud-based. It's a SaaS tool. All they need is a subscription to it. We can have them turned on in an hour. And they can be affecting their content right away because we have all of our training. Everything is online. And if they need help from a partner to come in and provide them a little more manpower, they've got a wonderful ecosystem of partners all around the world to choose from. And they're doing it, and they're certified by us. Very cool. It's something that you really have to think about the delivery of that. And like I said earlier, it's not about how you store information. And too many times I've seen companies approach it that way. Well, we can store that information, and if they ever come up with a solution that has a search bar on top of it, that means that you're going to bring back everything to that person that they don't need, as well as what they do need, and they've got to figure it out. They've got to, at the moment somebody's breathing on the other end of the phone, or they've got a deadline in front of them, they've got to figure out what's the right one, the latest one, the compliant one. Was this changed? Did I get an email on a change? Oh, wait a minute. Somebody dropped something on my desk that said, oh, that regulation is going into effect tonight. So which version do I use? Right? In our system, the version of the system is the one you use. It's that simple.
Interesting. No, I think that's great. And I think a lot of people overlook that, right? And you're right. I think, just to get back to your search example, the only people that do search well is Google. And you could argue that, but like the other companies that have tried to build their own search, including Microsoft, just nobody's going to build as good of search as Google. And they're not going to build it for just your internal content to get you exactly what you need almost instantly. It's just not going to happen. Like it's like unattainable.
Right. And we use an Elasticsearch, which is absolute best in the industry for this type of information.
Right.
And we control it to look at everything. So the entire database is accessible to it. But the reality is that if somebody's building something today and they use search, by sheer definition of search engines are built on the premise of bring me back everything that may look like my search criteria.
Yeah.
I don't have time to look at everything. If you bring back everything, whether it's everything from external, or it's a federated search across 5 of our databases and say, okay, well, here's how we're going to approach this. We're going to use a search solution to bring the agent, let's just talk like it's the contact center agent. We're going to bring them back everything from 5 different databases. Imagine drinking from the fire hose like that all of a sudden you're inundated, and you've got someone on the other end that, might be at the pharmacy with her child trying to wait for an inhaler to be approved by the insurance company, or waiting for roadside assistance to get a tow truck to them because they're stuck on the side of the road in a sketchy part of town, and they need to feel safe. Or maybe they're husband and wife at the bank trying to get their first mortgage to buy their first house, right? When you've got that responsibility, you don't have time to look at everything. You need the answer, and you need it to be given to you in a way that you can turn that into action to satisfy the task that's at hand.
Sure. And then how do you guys price it? Is it per user? Is it per call? Or how does that work?
Well, there's 2 models, right?
Okay.
One is our system, our standard system out of the box is a per user price.
Okay.
And that with volume gets real inexpensive.
Sure.
And then the other one is we have a lot of companies that say, you know what, I can see where connecting the knowledge into another application makes even more sense, because now we're getting to the last mile. They're already in an application.
Right.
If the knowledge could be served up at the same time as in the CRM or core system or whatever it is.
Right.
So they look at our API set, which can bring them all that information that their folks are using and allow them to connect it. And then there's a per transaction call on that. And quite honestly, it's the most affordable solution you might even think about going that way, because it gives you the best of both worlds. You could develop it for certain groups of people, but you can also connect it to any app. And we have connectors that can connect to 1,400 different other cloud apps.
Okay, wow.
Or you can use our digital orchestrator, which allows you to connect in any flavor of thing that you've got today, or anything you buy tomorrow. I mean, our approach has always been technology agnostic, because we don't know today what CRM system you've got, but we can connect to it. We don't know what chatbot, maybe you've got IBM Watson, or you've got Microsoft's Lewis platform, or you've got some other flavor of chatbot. We can connect to it, right? So we always keep a universal approach to this, because we want to be the vendor of highest value, so that you don't outgrow us. You can keep growing into using more of our system.
Sure. Do you guys do any custom development, or is that left up to the client?
The way we do that is, and we don't do the custom development because we are SaaS, we're a cloud platform. So that means, we have to, any changes that we make or any improvements is available to everyone, right? Across the world, in all the languages, et cetera. But our partners, our integration partners, and companies that develop us in more of a connected way, develop connectors that can also affect how our system works, right? So we can give a lot of control there, allow them to customize things. If you could bring us into your Salesforce or your Microsoft Dynamics solution, and you can pretty much have carte blanche on how it operates.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Well, I guess it leaves it up to the client to decide how out of the box or custom they need it to be. And maybe they start out of the box and then they move to some customizations down the road, and it doesn't really matter, right? Because as long as the data pulls into whatever interface, hardware, software, online device, it doesn't really matter, right? Because the data's in one central place. That's actually really interesting and very cool.
Correct. Yeah, it could serve up your mobile apps. Maybe if you have mobile apps, maybe you have field service out in the field. Maybe you've got engineers on poles, or in the basements of of buildings, and they're using Google Glass or Microsoft HoloLens,
Sure.
Or in a hospital, and they want the correct procedure to be coming up right inside the glasses. Right.
Very cool.
We've got connectivity with Microsoft that we do some of those too. Some of the best demos you can imagine. They're still kind of expensive,
Sure.
And not every company is moving down that path. But the ones that are looking at it from a critical future, and they're creating roadmaps on where they want to be in 5 or 10 years, those kinds of companies, they're coming our way because they see that we're building these things way out so that you can grow into it, and you're not going to have to say, well, gee, we need another tool now because they don't do this for our field service or our engineers, or whatever. And that's the way we always approach our development, is how can a company just see us as the thing that can give them a 10-year plus horizon rather than a 2-year.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because people don't realize how long, if you have a lot of content that's been changed a number of times over the years, moving to another system can take years, if not decades, right? And so having a system that you put in place that obviously you can update, but you can keep integrating and modifying and adding different types of verticals or devices, hardware and software related, as you grow, or as just the world changes and adds new technology, but being able to pull the same data to different screen sizes, or in your phone, or out in the field, or to glasses, or to your car, or wherever, is actually super, super important. And I think a lot of people don't realize that until they have to go from their archaic system into a new modern system. They think, oh, this is going to be awesome. It's like, sure, it'll be awesome in 5 years when we get all the content into it, right? And actually start using it. But like, if you guys can get somebody up and running within an hour, and sure, it might take them weeks or however long to import their data, they can start using it right away. Am I on the right track?
You're absolutely on the right track, and that's the philosophy that we've always operated by, and that's why companies don't leave us. I mean, we not only do we have great customer success people that work with our customers, they always have access to the right experts the time that they need them. I mean, we even put chat on our customer portal, so even if they have a question on how would you handle something like this, right, there's someone to answer it 24 hours a day. There's an expert by their side. Sure. We don't leave their side, even if they've had a partner implement some of the pieces of their content. They're still our customer, and right, we still offer them what we call a Panviva Pro session. There's a pro for you, whether they have a service contract with us or not. They get an hour of a pro expert every single month, even if it's just to learn what's new, or learn how to use something, or run an idea by, or, hey, we've got a new department that's thinking about doing this. How would you approach that? We believe that it's those types of things that make our customers more successful. And that's what they're hoping from us all the time. So we take that very seriously. And wherever we can give that, and we do the same with our partners. When our partners sign on board, they go through a vigorous certification process. But if they need to talk to someone in our marketing department, our sales department, our business development department, or they need to think through pricing or what have you, we're just one click away. We have an expert ready to stand by them. So our customers count on the fact that, not only do we provide them with all these great things, but we provide our partners with those so they get that level of service with whoever they choose.
No, that's very cool. But Steve, we're coming to the end of the show. So let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys, and any other links you want to mention.
Absolutely. That'd be great. So the easiest place is obviously our website, which is at panviva.com, www.panviva.com. And they can certainly find us on Twitter. They can find us on LinkedIn. They can find us on Facebook. just look up Panviva, and I'm sure they'll get to us. And the thing is, we're at a lot of events. They can look for us at a lot of industry events in healthcare and in financial services. And we would love to have people come by, meet us. We have our own training facilities, and people come in for training all the time. And that's sometimes the best way for us to really get to know our customers and what they're looking for. We do a lot of roundtables, a lot of webinars, and a lot of customer councils too. So we get our customers involved a lot, and without them, hey, we wouldn't be in jobs. So we understand how important they are.
Very cool. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time in your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
This is great. And thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.